Hi homebodies, my name's Amy. Welcome to my channel, Catskill Mountain Homebody. My wedding anniversary is coming up. So if you watch my video on the 6 reasons I love the month of November, I talked about how I got married Thanksgiving weekend in 1999. So our anniversary always falls around Thanksgiving. Sometimes it falls on Thanksgiving, but not this year. So I thought I would take out my wedding album and show you a few of our wedding pictures. And I thought I would talk a little bit about our November wedding, a little bit on what we did, the theme, and a little memory lane since my anniversary is coming up very soon. So I thought it would be a fun video to kind of document our November wedding, our Thanksgiving weekend wedding. So I pulled out my old album, and I think we should sit at the dining room table and I'll show you my wedding pictures and talk a little bit about our November wedding. I hope that the glare in here isn't too bad. Well, if you watched my video on why I love the month of November, I talked a lot about why I wanted to get married during Thanksgiving weekend. So watch that video if you want to find out that story. Joe and I spent a year and a half planning our wedding because we were living out west, but the wedding was planned in New York State, where our family was from, Jersey and New York. So it took us quite a while to get everything organized. So we took over a year to plan our wedding. So our wedding was the Saturday after Thanksgiving in 1999, but we had a Christmas-themed wedding because Christmas starts right after Thanksgiving. That's why at the end of the Thanksgiving Day parade in New York City, Santa Claus always arrives to kind of usher in the Christmas holiday. So even though we got married in the month of November, it was somewhat of a Christmas-themed wedding, although not too much. I got married at a chapel in my alma mater where I graduated from college. And they had just simply put up 2 Christmas trees with white lights, and there were some poinsettia plants, and that's pretty much the extent of the decorations in the church where we got married. But we had the reception at a Renaissance hotel in Westchester County, and they had put up all of their Christmas decorations the weekend of Thanksgiving, so they had all their Christmas decorations up, and so we did have a kind of a Christmas themed wedding. All right, so let me see if you can see my album. I hope the glare isn't going to be too much here. Well, there's not much to say about this photo except it's very up close of my face. And you can see a little bit of my bouquet. So I wanted to carry a bouquet of simple calla lilies. That was my bouquet. And that's because my father's mother carried a bouquet of calla lilies. I don't have a photo of her. I'm sure my father does somewhere. And there used to be a photo of her in my parents' dining room, and she had these pretty calla lilies that she kind of cradled in her arm, and I wanted to carry calla lilies the way she did. No, actually, she passed away when I was 15. So I did the calla lilies, so I'll show you that. So this is a better view of the calla lilies that I carried cradled, and they were just simple with a white bow. And I did have a long veil. You can't really tell, but it did go down pretty long. And it had there was beading on the top of my dress, so the veil had beading, and then there was beading on this piece at my head. This is me and my parents with my calla lilies. And even though it was a late November wedding, it was almost 60 degrees outside, so we were able to take photographs outside, and the grass was still green. So you could almost think it was a spring wedding, but it actually was a November wedding. And that's me and my father. And you've seen that picture before, but that's me and my grandmother. And that's my mother's mother, the one who taught me how to make meatballs. So if you've seen that video, that's that grandmother. That's me and my grandmother. This is my father's brother, my uncle, who was a bachelor and kind of like our second dad. And this is me. My sister's fixing my veil, and my best friend Gemma is holding my bouquet. I had some of my bridesmaids stand on a rock. And yes, there are no leaves on the tree, but we are outside. So my bridesmaids wore a hunter green dress that had velvet on the top. It was a very, very simple dress. And one of my bridesmaids told me it was very comfortable, which was nice. I wanted them to be comfortable. And then I gave them those necklaces. I gave everybody a pearl necklace as their bridesmaids' gifts. And so they're all wearing their necklaces, which I thought looked pretty against the dark green dress. And then their bouquets had a lot of white roses, but with a little hint of pink, which I thought would be pretty. So you can see my beaded head piece here and the little beads on the veil and the calla lilies. And then this is the same photo that I have framed above my fireplace of my handsome groom, Joe. I like that photo of him. Groom and the groomsman walking up to the church. And this is a photo of me getting out of the limo with my parents. My mom wore a dark purple dress, which was very, very pretty, that she had made for the wedding. And that's my dad walking me down the aisle. And yes, we had a Catholic Mass ceremony. Joe and I are both Catholic. And my veil was as long as my dress. So the veil goes down all the way to the floor. And that's when Joe met me at the front of the church after my father gave me away with my calla lilies. I also wore little short white gloves. And that's us getting married by the Catholic priest. You can see the poinsettias. We lit a candle. And actually I have the candle on my dining room. Let me show you that real quick. In some earlier videos where I gave you a tour of my dining room, I showed you the candle that Joe and I lit at our wedding that my mother-in-law put our invitation on. So let me show you that. So my mother-in-law took our invitation and she glued it to the candle. And this is the actual candle that we lit at the ceremony. And she decorated it with little white ribbons and little white roses and pearls. And then these are the actual bride and groom champagne glasses that Joe and I used at the wedding that I display. And these were actually the ones my parents used at their wedding. So I just kept them because I used them at my wedding. Yes, that is the candle that Joe's mom had decorated that we used at the wedding. And it was all decorated. She had done it for the wedding ceremony. She was very, very artistic and crafty, my husband's mother. So this is us walking out after we got married. All right, so these are some pictures inside the chapel. You can see the simple Christmas tree and a few poinsettias that they had out. And Joe and I, after everybody left for the reception, we took some photos with the photographer. Such fancy photos. This is me on the altar after we were married. So you can see how long You can see how long my veil was. It was longer than my dress, really. Now, at the reception, we took off the long veil and we just left the short veil. And that's Joe and I have this picture blown up and framed by my front door. And this is my family after we were married. And this is Joe's family, Joe's parents, my in-laws. And then these are all of our groomsmen and bridesmaids, and Joe and I after the wedding. And that is all the groomsmen and bridesmaids and our parents. And this is Joe and I walking into our reception. So you see they put some white poinsettias out as decoration. And then our place setting, well, I'll show you in a minute, our centerpieces. That's the toast, the best man's toast. This is Joe and I in front of the Christmas tree. And I think this was actually outside the chapel where we were married. We took some photographs by their Christmas tree. This is my husband, myself, and my husband's grandfather, his mother's father. So we had two grandparents at our wedding. My grandmother, my mother's mother, and Joe's grandfather, Joe's mother's father, which was nice. Okay, so this is us cutting the cake. We had a Sylvia Weinstock cake. We actually met Sylvia Weinstock. We went to her studio and we met her. And she made a cake with poinsettias, pine needles, and pine cones. And if she's known for making a very, very intricate cakes with flowers made of fondant and sugar. So that was our cake. And then we didn't do a bride and groom on top of the cake. Instead, my parents, who collect Hummels, bought us this Hummel on a stand, and it has our wedding date on the stand on a little plaque. And this is where I have in my living room right now. And that's Joe and I. After we got married, we took a photo outside the chapel. So those were the photos that I chose for my actual album. I do have some other photos around, but let me just talk a little bit about my wedding. So Joe and I had a wonderful wedding. We really had a good time. It was a weekend event. So we had, a lot of us stayed at the hotel in Westchester County for the whole weekend. And we had the rehearsal dinner at a little restaurant not far from the hotel, which was nice. Our wedding was an evening wedding. The mass started at 4, so we had a full mass. We actually hired a singer to sing Ave Maria and to sing some of the other songs in the mass, which was very nice. It was beautiful. The mass was beautiful. But then we had a sit-down dinner, a sit-down reception. And there were 2 choices for dinner. It was salmon and veal. And I think I had the salmon. So those were the choices for dinner. And it was a really, really delicious dinner. And we made sure to eat it. I wasn't going to miss my dinner because my mother always told the story about how she didn't eat at her wedding because she was talking to people and they took away her food. She never got to eat her food. She sat down, they took away her food. So I made sure I ate my food at my wedding. And we had a band. So we had a band, and our song was a song by the Manhattans called Shining Star, which I can't play on YouTube, unfortunately. But it's Shining Star by the Manhattans, and it's a fun, I like that song. It's a nice song. So sometimes it comes on my radio station, and I sing along. So that was nice. So we had a Thanksgiving weekend wedding with a Christmas theme because we kind of ushered in the Christmas time. So let me show you what we gave every couple. Okay, so we gave every person who came alone one of these gifts, and then every couple got one. Because we had over 200 people at our wedding, and we didn't have 200 of these ornaments. We had probably like 150 of them. So, in these little boxes are hand-painted glass ornaments that my father had gotten at a kind of like a discount glass and china store. And they were selling these ornaments. And each one is hand-painted in there's different patterns. And I don't want to open the box. This has never been opened. This is one of the actual boxes that I wrapped for the wedding. And so we found these ribbons, and I actually came home the summer before I got married, and I wrapped like 150 of these boxes. So I just put the ribbon on it with these little roses. And this one actually has never been opened, and I'm not going to open it. But there's an ornament inside. I do have ornaments in my Christmas storage. I have my parents' ornament, and I do have some ornaments that were given away at my wedding. And I'll show you that when I do a Decorate With Me for Christmas video. But this is I kept this, and I keep it on my dining room as a reminder of the gift that we gave everyone who came to our wedding, and every couple that came to our wedding, they got an ornament. So that was the favor. And then everyone got those Jordan almonds, those candied almonds. And we had big ones that my father had a friend who went to Italy and bought big Jordan almonds. And those candied almonds are common at Italian weddings. And so everyone got a little bag of the candied almonds as a favor also. So I'll show you pictures within the video of our centerpiece. But we did an evergreen centerpiece with candle and Christmas themed. So the centerpieces were pretty simple. Just like an evergreen centerpiece. And, a lot of our flowers were white poinsettias because it was a Christmas-themed wedding. All right, I'm back in my living room. All right, I'll tell you guys a secret. I had a really pretty wedding dress, and I'll show you some photos of it, other photos that I have of it. But it was beaded on top, and it was short-sleeved. And the sleeves had little bows, and then there was a big bow on the back of the dress that you really couldn't see with the veil. But after I took the veil off, you could see it. So I'll tell you a secret about my wedding dress. My wedding dress was like $350. I didn't spend a lot on the wedding dress. We spent a lot on the wedding, but not on the wedding dress. I don't understand why brides spend $8,000 on a wedding dress. To me, nobody can tell if the wedding dress was $300 or $8,000. Absolutely nobody can tell unless they're like an expert in fashion, which nobody is. So to me, it was more important to have beautiful food, a beautiful cake, a band, a beautiful venue. That was much more important to me than putting money into the wedding dress. And I really think people thought my dress was more expensive than it was because of the wedding was so nice. But we really didn't. We cheaped out on the wedding dress. So, but it was fun. I still have it. It's upstairs underneath my bed. Maybe I can give it to a granddaughter someday. But it is I did have it professionally cleaned and stored. So hopefully it'll be preserved enough for if somebody wants to wear it. My wedding, I was lucky on my wedding day because we didn't have any problems. No mishaps. Nothing crazy happened. It was fun. Everybody made it. The best thing about having a Thanksgiving weekend wedding is that everyone's free. So we had almost 100% attendance at our wedding. Almost 100% of the people we invited came to the wedding. The few people who couldn't come to our wedding couldn't come for a significant reason. For example, Joe's sister didn't come because she was 8 months pregnant with my niece. And they lived in Arizona, and she wasn't allowed to fly that late in her pregnancy to New York. So they just couldn't come because they were supposed to be in the wedding party. And then she ended up pregnant and gave birth to my niece not long after we got married. So, that kind of situation you can't avoid. But most of the people we invited to our wedding came because it was over Thanksgiving, this Thanksgiving holiday. And so people were free over Thanksgiving. They don't have plans. And what we did was 6 months before the wedding, we sent out letters to let everyone know to save the date. And so we sent out letters to all the guests saying, here's the weekend of our wedding. Here's the hotel. You can book the hotel. You got a discount. We're getting married the Saturday after Thanksgiving. So save the date. And people did. And almost everybody came to our wedding. So I was very, very happy. And that's a great thing about having a wedding over a holiday is that people aren't working. People have off that weekend because it's a long weekend. So they're free to come to a wedding on Saturday night after Thanksgiving. So that was very nice. So Joe and I flew home about a week because we were living out west in California when we were engaged. So we flew home a week before the wedding to do last minute things. We had to get the marriage license in New York and all that stuff. And then we spent Thanksgiving at Joe's parents' house that year. And then we left Friday for the hotel because we had the rehearsal dinner. The wedding was Saturday. And we stayed the night, Saturday night, all of us, everybody, even the guests. And the next morning, my father hosted a brunch. And I'll show you some photos from the brunch. I have some photos from the brunch. But yeah, we had a nice brunch in the hotel on the morning after the wedding. So everybody came to the brunch who was at the wedding the next morning. And then we went back to my parents' house. And Joe and I stayed at my parents' house a couple more days before we flew home. But I was teaching at the time. And it's hard when you teach to leave for that long of a time. I had a night class on Thursday. And I actually flew home in the morning on Thursday and taught that night class. So we were gone almost 2 weeks. We're gone almost 2 weeks to get married. We didn't take a honeymoon. We didn't take a honeymoon because I had to teach. I had a job. And so we actually have never taken a honeymoon. We've been on vacation, but not a honeymoon. So I didn't really care about the honeymoon, honestly. I'm not big on traveling. I never have been. So I really didn't care. Say hi. I'm talking about my wedding.
What about it?
Are you happy that we got married?
That's tough. That's a tough one for me.
Really?
Yeah, it's a tough one for me personally.
You'd rather mom and dad were not married?
Yeah, no, I'm fine.
By the way, Julius was born before our 1-year anniversary. You were here. You were with us for our 1-year anniversary.
Yeah,
you were.
That was a great day.
He was 6 weeks old.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So that's what we did for our honeymoon.
We had steak and wine.
I don't like steak.
Ah, sweet guess.
Yeah, I got pregnant in February. So Julius came before our 1-year anniversary. But that's okay. Joe and I dated for a long time. We dated for almost 5 years. So by the time we got married, I was ready for the baby. And we had been engaged for over a year and a half. So I was like over the wedding, ready for the baby by the time we got married. But we did not take a honeymoon. But one of the things we did do is all of our wedding gifts, we mostly left at my mom's house, my parents' house, because we couldn't take them on the flight. And I got a lot of china. I got a lot of, people did give me money because in Italian households you get a lot of money, but my husband's family's not Italian. So we got crystal bowls and crystal, candlesticks and a lot of china, all kinds of gifts that we had gotten. So we came home for Christmas and we drove an RV back from New Jersey to California after our wedding. So we got married in November, and then in December we came home for Christmas, and then we drove home all our wedding gifts in an RV. So that was our honeymoon. That was kind of like our honeymoon before we had Julie. And I got pregnant in February after that. So we drove back in January, and I was pregnant by February. And then we had Julius in beginning of October. So that was my wedding experience. It's fun to get married over a holiday like Thanksgiving because everyone's free. So thanks for joining me. Trip down memory lane. We're coming up on Joe and my anniversary. It's going to be after Thanksgiving this year. And this is going to be our 23rd wedding anniversary. Yeah, 23rd wedding anniversary. So that 23 years, I know this sounds crazy, but 23 years went by so quickly for me and for Joe. And I almost can't believe it's been 23 years. You know, you think back on your wedding, you think of all the people who aren't here anymore. You know, in 23 years, a lot of people aren't around. And, you know, we had so many great people at our wedding. We each had a grandparent at our wedding, you know, and you know, you think about like some of my younger relatives who came to the wedding who are now married and have kids, you know, so much has happened in 23 years. My son's in college. So it is, you know, it is interesting to look back and see how far we've come and how time has flown. Really, 23 years has just flown by. Please consider subscribing or liking this video or subscribing to my channel, Catskill Mountain Homebody. I do a lot of cooking and baking and decorating and a lot about Catskill living. In the spring and summer, last spring and summer, I showed you our garden, which was the first experiment we did. And we'll be doing more of those types of videos. But my favorite things to do are crafts and decorating. And so please consider subscribing and joining us here in the New York State Catskills. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.